Welcome to a special edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Thanks again for joining us. Now, there'll be no phone calls today as we continue our look ahead to the Giants' regular season schedule. Today, we'll preview the Steelers, who play the Giants in Week 8. That's October 28th on Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh. And to do so, let's bring in Steelers radio analyst and former offensive lineman Craig Wolfley. Craig, thanks so much for joining us today. I know the blood's got to be pumping because training camp is only a few weeks away.
Exactly so. Today was the last day of mini camp, which means the next gathering is the first day of training camp, which is always a big moment. Now, back in my day, it was a little bit different because that was a Chuck Noll training camp. And as I tell the young bucks today, believe you me, it was never about making the team in a Chuck Noll camp. It was about surviving the day.
Yeah, Parcells used to run 3-a-days occasionally back when I started this thing, and I guarantee you that Noel was doing the same with you guys.
I can only tell you those were some giant teams that an offensive lineman really didn't like to meet very often.
I hear you. All right, well, let's talk about this year's Steelers team. Coming off an 8-7 season, lost in the wild card game to Buffalo. Mike Tomlin is back, has made the playoffs in 3 of his last 4 years, and in 11 of his 17 years as the Steelers head coach. We talk about it all the time around the Giants as they've gone through a lot of coaches in recent times. The continuity is always a good thing, especially when you can win. But how has Mike Tomlin changed over the years, specifically in these last couple of years, as the entire concept of what NFL football seems to have been morphed a little bit?
Well, he really hasn't changed. His message has been very similar since day one. Day one, when he walked in and was introduced as the head coach, you always knew who was large and in charge, because I'll tell you something, Mike Tomlin wears leadership like water wears wet. I mean, it's just who he is. And the consistency of his message over the years has been just the same. And that's why I believe you've got so much success and guys buy into and lean heavily into the program such as Mike institutes. And the fact of the matter is, he's one of those guys that, in coaching, there's a saying, you'll never know how much they care until they know how much you care. And they got a good concept of how much Mike cares as they've realized that sort of thing over the last almost 2 decades.
Well, I think the biggest curiosity is how Coach Tomlin's going to handle this quarterback situation. Russell Wilson comes in during the offseason, and you recall he made a pit stop at the Giants before he went to Pittsburgh and wound up doing the deal with the Steelers. And then obviously Justin Fields is there as well. Are we going to see like a Don Strock, a David Woodley thing where there's going to be a relief pitcher every other week or different guys starting every week? Or might we see something more like what the Saints did with Taysom Hill when he would come in for certain packages for David Carr?
It's interesting because there's a lot of conjecture flying around as to exactly how this is going to play out. And let's face it, nobody knows. Right now, Russ Wilson is the guy to be, the guy that it's his to lose, I think. And we'll see where it goes. But it's going to be a heavily contested in training camp type of situation. Now, the one thing I will say, I talked to the great Dick LeBeau, and Dick LeBeau, of course, defensive Hall of Fame and everything else. I heard him say, if I was a coach, I'd put a package for Justin Fields together every week just to make the opposing defensive coordinator have to do extra work, and that makes perfect sense to me. Look, I think Russell Wilson, watching him during OTAs, this guy went up the sidelines on a scramble for about 50 yards, which is important to me because you know what? At 34, none of the young bucks were able to close on him at the end. I like that. And I think it's important because one of the strong points in Russell's favor is the fact that he rushed for 38 first downs last year. And I'm not a Kenny Pickett basher. I thought a lot of Kenny Pickett. It didn't work out. You move on. But Kenny only rushed for 12. Look, the difference between 38 and 12 is huge. How many times you keep a drive going and rolling because you came through on 3rd down or whatever, able to run for a first down? That's an important statistic to have. And I think Russ has still got that ability to get up and go.
Craig, both Wilson and Fields have been starters in this league before. From a locker room perspective, and also from a psychological and emotional perspective, do you think it's much of a problem for either guy how Tomlin finally decides to split up the snaps, if it is a split at all? And do you think it might be an issue for the locker room?
I don't think it is an issue for the locker room. Look, we went through that back in the 80s. There was a lot of turnover after Terry Bradshaw. The thing about it is you get a number of people coming to quarterback. We had half a dozen or so quarterbacks throughout the 80s. The fact of the matter is, listen, you got to know your quarterback's voice. And whoever they put back there doesn't matter to you other than the fact you're aware of a difference in rhythm and voice and all that sort of thing. You just gotta go out and play. What's in front of you is the most important thing. That guy has to handle his business at quarterback. You got to handle your business as an offensive lineman, and that is to take care of that guy behind you. So the fact of the matter is, it really, to me, never mattered who the quarterback was because he's not going to help me out as far as who I'm blocking, okay? You got to get that job done up front, and the worst thing you can do is start to splinter the locker room. Can't do it. You can't have that.
They've had changes with the offensive coordinator spot. Do you expect to see much different Steelers offense this year than what we've seen in the past, knowing that Coach Tomlin has made changes there?
Yeah, I'm anticipating to see a difference. I know that Arthur Smith comes with a resume that speaks of a very physical, come after you, knuckle up, buckle up, duct tape your chin strap on, maybe get 2 chin straps, shall we say, and go after it. Multiple tight end sets, whether it's 12, 13 personnel, multiple tight ends plus jumbo, more quarterback under center, probably 30% more fullback-oriented snaps. So I think we're going to see a lot of different stuff, but it's going to be a physical, come after you sort of thing. Think about it. They just drafted 3 offensive linemen. You got 3 guys, smash, bash, and crash. All right, these young guys. These guys are physical. I just watched their tapes. Been watching them for a while now. It's fun to see what you got with Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick. You got Troy Fontano. I mean, these guys can play some ball, and I think they're going to be a knuckle up, fist up, come after you type offense that's going to pervade in the next couple of years.
Well, let me go there rather than go to the skill positions because you're a lineman anyway, so you probably want to talk about the trenches. So they draft.
Paul, let me just say this: fat is where it's at, brother. Okay, it's up front.
So Zach Frazier, the center, was drafted in the first round, and Troy Fontano, you mentioned, was drafted in the second round. And so there is a new offensive line being built in Pittsburgh, and with these young bucks, these rookies who are going to be getting their feet wet. How long is it going to take for that continuity, knowing that the Steelers are going to want to lean on these guys heavily?
Well, you're talking about the young guys. Mason McCormick is the third guy. These guys, Zach Frazier is the most likely to get some reps early on right now. We'll see. I don't know how it's all going to work out. Without pads on, you can't tell anything. But this I will tell you. Zach Frazier, watching him, you watch him, he's got that goofy wrestler strength, okay? He's got these guys, and I say that literally. I mean, I once wrestled Kurt Angle, okay? These guys are, and it didn't go well for the kid, okay? I'll just say that flat out, all right? But let me just say this. They have a 360-degree strength. Their ability to have balance, play with leverage, and with uncanny strength in postures that would get you in difficulty. For instance, if you're one of these guys that's a 500-pound bench presser and 700-pound squatter, that sort of thing, you're very strong, but you're strong in specific planes of motion that you've strengthened. Those wrestlers, they got balance, they got strength. You watch wrestlers, when they come together, what do? The first thing they do is they drop their center and they're wrestling with each other. Boxers come in there, they're like, they're throwing a few hands. That's right. But wrestlers, they're getting low and they naturally gravitate to advantageous leverage positions, which means you've got great ability to get under and up, as Chuck Noll always preached, that leverage capabilities on the offensive line. And I think this offensive line is going to do well. I think Zach Frazier is going to be a starting center at some point in time.
Just remember, Craig, no foreign objects in steel chairs in the NFL.
There you go. I see you're wise to the ways of the WWE, my friend.
For sure. Hey, what about this big back, Najee Harris? He is a physical force, and that plays right into the hands of what you're talking about with Steelers football. Jaylen Warren, to me, is a third down back. And now Cordero Patterson, the great kick returner / running back who plays like everything, has finally landed in Pittsburgh. How will this running back situation sort itself out?
It's anybody's guess. Najee Harris has slimmed down, dropped some weight. Did what?
Really?
Oh yeah. Now think about this. I mean, when Lev Bell, before he was drafted, Mike Tomlin said to him, said, "You need to drop some weight, about 20 pounds." Lev Bell did. Lev Bell, no matter how it ended up, this guy was a terrific running back. Okay. Now we see Najee Harris has decided to, he came in this spring and he's dropped some weight. Okay. We're going to find out exactly where he fits in the Arthur Smith offense. I think that the nice duality of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren is just a gem. I mean, this guy, watching him block for Najee one time down in Cincinnati, he put a decleater on a linebacker that was just a thing of beauty. It would almost put you in tears as an offensive lineman. You're like, wow, now that's a hit, man. And so, you know, these two together, it's going to be very, very interesting how they divvy up the reps and, as Mike calls it, the division of labor. But you got a potent running game, I think, coming up. And again, I think we're going to see a manifestation of more Pat Freiermuth at tight end, maybe even some Darnell Washington as we move to 12 and 13 personnel. But certainly I gotta like what we're seeing already.
You already mentioned Freiermuth just a second ago at tight end. George Pickens, everybody knows the sky's the limit for him. I expect him to have an even better season than he had last year. And then Roman Wilson comes in as a third-round draft choice. And I got to be honest with you, Craig, I'm thinking to myself, he might wind up being a bigger passing weapon threat than maybe a lot of people are thinking right away.
This guy operates very well within the numbers, you know, across the middle and so forth. This guy is he's tough, but he's slicker and snot on a doorknob, brother. I got to tell you, this guy is fast and he moves. You take him with Calvin Austin, you got some good young speed talent there. You got George Pickens, who, when he puts it all together, I think we're going to see a new standard of wide receiver play in the NFL, what he's capable of doing. But make no mistake about it, the de facto, if you ask me right now, the number 2 receiver is going to be Pat Freiermuth, and they've got to get him more targets. They saw last year what he's capable of doing when he caught 9 of 11 and a buck something against Cincinnati. That's what he needs, more targets, and there wasn't enough targets for him last year. Mark my words, I think Freiermuth, at the end of the day, he's going to be in the top five tight ends in the league when you run him down.
Wow. That's saying a lot now. That's making a big jump because his numbers don't match up with some of the elite numbers of other tight ends in the league, but you see the potential.
I do see the potential. I've had an opportunity to talk with this young guy. One of the interesting things is he reads secondary coverages like slot receivers. You don't see many tight ends capable of that. He's got the same vision that a slot receiver has. You got to watch the safeties, and you got to see what the quarterback is seeing. And that's important if you're going to operate over the middle. And also with Pat, I don't think there's a safety in the NFL he can't beat and get his numbers to the quarterback and be quarterback friendly, because I think he's that good. So we'll see. I got a lot of expectations off him, but you know what? I think the young man can live up to them.
Wow. Folks, reminder, we want you to check out interviews on the Giants Huddle podcast. It features long-form interviews with a lot of personnel within the organization as well as the league. Go to giants.com/podcasts. And remember, even though the Giants-Pittsburgh game is on the road, and Craig won't need these, but Giants season ticket memberships are available for the 2024 season. To learn all about exclusive member benefits, visit giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And of course, the Giants TV streaming app is available with original video content. It's free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. Craig, I know you're checking out those Giants highlights. You want to scout the club before they come out to Pittsburgh. I get it.
Hey, isn't that what we all want? We all want a little peekaboo at what somebody else is playing. Look, it's no different than when I was a player. Man, lining up with Lawrence Taylor, with Harry Carson, with George Martin, with all Jimmy Burt. That was one of my high school teammates, was Jimmy Burt.
Yeah.
You know, and so I go back a long ways.
Yeah, he went up with the Hurricanes before coming to the Giants. Let's talk about defense. We all know about TJ Watt. Has won, 3 out of the last 4 NFL sack championships. It seems like he's in his prime and he's already going into his 8th season. I can't believe he's that old already. You got Cameron Haywood. You got Alex Highsmith. I mean, there's a bunch of talent in that front 7. Tell me how you see that playing out this year.
Well, the front end of the defense, I think, is going to be mucho powerful, brother. I got to tell you. I mean, you take a look. Number one, a healthy 14 going into his 14th year, Cam Hayward, otherwise known as the Lion King. All right. This guy's back. He's back with a vengeance. When he's at the top of his game, even now at 14 years, he's still a top 5 defensive tackle. I don't care what anybody says. My eyes tell me. I don't need all the stats. You just watch tape and you'll know. If this guy comes along, then you've got a guy like Larry Ogunjobi, who has been wrecking offensive linemen in the AFC North for quite some time. He spent some time with Cincinnati, with Cleveland. Now here he is in Pittsburgh. He's another defensive lineman that's going to provide a lot of reps. You got Keanu Benton, who is just, this guy is thick and powerful, and he takes and he hits thick guys with that heavy club hand, and those thick bodies move there when he's playing at nose tackle. I love that kid. And then you got, like you said, you got a perennial defensive player of the year contestant in TJ Watt. Let me tell you this. If I'll put it this way, if edge rushers were Jedis, okay, and pass rushing was a martial art, then you've got TJ Watt would be Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay. I mean, this guy, he's just that good, and I got to say, Alex Highsmith on the other side, he would have to be now a Skywalker. I don't know. The two of them together, they are twin masters of mayhem when they get on the rush. So it's a lot of fun to watch these guys go. They go big, they go hard, and they go all the time.
Gotta love Joey Porter and Minkah Fitzpatrick out there in the secondary as well. Two guys who can kind of keep the back end under control.
Before we go there, you got to talk the linebackers because
Patrick Queen comes over from Baltimore, right?
Patrick Queen, yes, man. Patrick Queen is the king over there at the linebacker level. But I got to tell you, I'm so happy because we had real problems. We got, Cole Holcomb got hurt and Quan Alexander and all these injuries just ran rampant on the inside linebacker spot. Well, let me tell you something. There's a guy there, Landon Roberts. This guy hits like a freight train. I mean, this guy is something special. Patrick Queen, I got a lot of love for him. He's excellent. But the guy that I think really nailed down a lot of good stuff there was Landon Roberts. That guy really brought a bang last year. Matter of fact, there was a couple of times he didn't make the tackle, but he hit the lead blocker so hard. I was watching the hit on the lead blocker. I forgot about the running back. The hit was so good. But anyhow, regardless of that, then you've got, like you talked about, Minkah Fitzpatrick, who, to me, he's a top 5 safety, if not the best safety in the league. They just got to be able to put him more in space to be able to use all that incredible talent that he's got. And then, of course, you've got Joey Porter Jr., and I think Dante Jackson is going to be able to put in some big reps there too. So we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's a big trade getting Jackson over from Carolina because I don't know how that other corner spot would have been solidified if you didn't grab him.
Well, Cam Sutton's back. You got Cam Sutton, and that's good too. They just picked, it signed him this past week. That's very good. Joey Porter Jr. is just, you got to love him, man. I mean, Senior has been teaching Junior a lot, Joey Porter Senior, because the young man comes with an awful lot of confidence and attitude that is really good stuff. He performs. And when the guy delivers, man, you got to love it. He's, one of those young guys that is going to keep get better each and every year for quite some time yet. He had just an outstanding rookie season. So there's a lot of good stuff there. And when you got like the Minkah Fitzpatricks and everything else there, you got some good stuff in the back end.
Can't ignore special teams because they're always still a part of the game. And I saw that former Eagles punter Cameron Johnston came over as a free agent. And I think that's important because, we in the Northeast, we always have to be aware of nasty weather, especially at the end of the season and come playoff time. And if your punter and your kicker are not able to deal with those elements, it can be a problem.
Well, December Northeast football, as Mike Tomlin would reference, is big. And you're right. You're exactly right. You've got to pay attention to those details, which makes the addition of making sure that the Wizard of Boz is signed on and he's looking good. He got married this offseason. So
hey, remember, Craig, now Boswell was with the Giants at one time. Just remember that.
Yeah, that's right. But, it's here in Pittsburgh that he found his leg, man. There you go.
No, that's for sure. Hey, before we go, I need to ask you about 3 former Steelers who signed deals here with the Giants in the offseason, starting with wide receiver Allen Robinson, who seems like he's played in this league forever and is going to be trying to make a bid for the Giants 53.
No question about it. You got a slot receiver worthy and capable of going in and digging out the nickel corners that embed themselves on the inside. When you got a seal down to the inside so you can get to the outside with the pitch or running back, however you hand it off, whatever, he's a guy that'll go after it. He's also going to make the tough third down catches. Skilled performer. I didn't think he was used to his best here last year. But then again, you know, there's so many things you don't know.
Right.
Regardless, Allen Robinson's has proven himself on NFL fields for a number of years, and he'll do well in whatever he's asked there.
Two other fellas who did some good special teams work for the Steelers were Miles Boykin, the receiver, and Elijah Riley, the safety. Again, I don't know exactly how they're going to fit into the Giants puzzle and what their competition is finally going to be, but they did bring him in here for a reason.
You know, I was hoping that the Steelers were going to sign both those guys back because Miles Boykin is a big, long receiver, capable of doing well, a big body. He is a terrific gunner on the punt team. I mean, he throws bodies out of the way. I mean, he is one, I'm serious, he's literally one of the top 3-4 gunners in the league on the punt team. So you've already got and nailed down a good special team deal there. Elijah Riley's a West Point kid. Listen, one of my oldest boy graduated from West Point. These guys, when you see a guy like Elijah Riley coming from West Point, you have just a righteous standard of hardworking dudes. You know, West Point football players that said the easiest part of their day at West Point as a football player is the football practice. Okay, so this guy's used to hard work, and he is one of those guys that is going to give you his all and lay it on the line and do it over and over again. So you got a good triumvirate of 3 guys that were here with us last year, and I think highly of all 3 of them.
Final thoughts before we let you go, Craig, is that when the people look at the new schedule that comes out every year, whether or not it makes any difference, and I'm one who doesn't think it does, they looked at the Steelers schedule and said, well, based on last year's winning percentages, they've got the 3rd toughest schedule in the NFL this year. Now, again, I don't think that means a hill of beans year to year, but there are people saying, my goodness, this could be a rough road for Pittsburgh. They'll be playing the Giants right smack in the middle of that schedule. Is there any feeling right now as you sit here about the positive vibes or maybe some of the pitfalls that as a whole this team will have to navigate in the first month or two?
Well, I think what's curious about the whole schedule thing is the fact that you don't get into your division play until you're almost 3/4 of the way through the year. Week 11 or 12, you know, and then here's the thing that really bothers me. You're going to play 3 games in 10 days. I mean, in December. I mean, as the great Alan Faneca, Big Red, you know, Hall of Famer for the Steelers said, he goes, you don't even walk normal for a week after a December game, you know, and now you're going to play 3 games. And I think 2 of them are division games or something. I can't even remember. Well, one of them is Christmas Day with Kansas City Chiefs. You know, I mean, that's going to be a gauntlet that you have to survive and run through. But listen, you know, that's the way it is. You know, if you're a ball player, the only thing I wanted to do was to find out the hot weather games because I'm a Northeastern boy. The first thing I looked at was how many Tampa Bay, Miami, or, you know, Dallas games were, because then it might be Cramp City. You know, but anything other than that, I didn't care about. You can only play in 1 game at a time. So who's to worry about it?
Former Steelers offensive lineman and now Steelers radio analyst Craig Wolfley joining us today. Craig, I can't tell you how much fun it's been to speak with you this afternoon, and you know, enjoyed watching you play. And I wish I was in Pittsburgh to listen to you because it sounds like you have a blast.
Well, I do. You know, we're not curing cancer. We're celebrating a great game and great players, and you know that's what it's all about: having fun, enjoying it. And it's been a pleasure meeting you, Paul.
Great stuff, Craig. Folks, thanks for listening to today's episode of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. And today's show is part of the Giants platforms everywhere where you can listen to your favorite podcasts or at giants.com/podcasts. I'm Paul Dottino. So long, everybody.